Okay, hi everyone. So continuing on, we left off last time with Ruth 2 verses 13 through 14. So now I'm going to start with 15. Okay. So again, I will read and translate. Please fill out your worksheet while you do this. Okay, so Vatakom Lila Kate. And this is now verse 15, turns to what she does after lunch. Okay. Um, so we are told that she arose, right, from kum, vum maim. Again, this is third feminine singular. Why? Because this is Ruth, right? Va takom. And so she arose, right, in order to locate. We've seen this word. It means to glean, okay? There's a lot of tough sounds. I don't know why. Okay, so she arose in order to glean. Okay, and now this is what Boaz is doing really behind the scenes. Okay, Vayitzav Boaz et Naarav Lamor. Okay, and he commanded, that is Boaz, and this is from Sade Vav He. The He has dropped out, which means to command or to order. And Boaz ordered, and again, usually, or a lot of times you see Sava really put together with military officers or with God, right? Because God's the one that's commanding stuff. Okay, so Sav, okay, so Boaz commanded, right, at Naarav, okay, his servants, okay, Lamor, okay, quotation mark, or saying, okay, okay, Gam Bain Ha Omerim Telakate, Velo Taklimuha, okay. And when she, you could, a better way to translate this maybe is when she arose to glean, okay, Boaz commanded his servants saying, or quotation mark, also gam, Bain, between ha omerim, and you can see this amar, amar in between, right, which is related to omer, a kind of particular unit of weight, okay. And so he says, even between the standing grains, right? So he's really telling her she has no bar in terms of where she can glean. Okay, she can like literally go into all the veggie patches. Okay, so even among the standing grain, okay, she can glean. Okay, and don't and and when she does this, velo, and don't, tak tak takli muha. Okay, and again, this is a hifil. This is I don't know if we've seen a lot of hifils, but here's a hifil, and you can tell because it has this long prefix and it has this e sound in the middle. Okay, and you should not and what does kalam mean? Kaf lam and name is the root here, and you should not kind of scold her, reproach her. Okay, and it seems to be, now one way to read it is that Boaz is saying this privately to his servants, right? Oh, okay, I see that Ruth has done, is finished eating, that she's going to get up, and or you can see this as him saying this publicly. And when she gets up, because she's done, he kind of turns to all the servants and says, by the way, she's allowed to go anywhere she wants on this field. You're not gonna, don't hold her back, and don't reproach her for it. Okay. Certainly, of course, like I said, part of Boaz's function, even from the very beginning, is to gradually lift her up her position in this society. Okay, and if that wasn't enough, he goes on, right? And also, vogam, okay, shol tasholu la minhat savatim, okay, and also, and now this is a difficult word, so I looked it up and I was like, what the hell? Okay, whenever you see two words that are similar together, usually verbs, okay? The first one is almost always what is called an infinitive absolute. Remember, there are two infinitives. It's infinitive constructs, like lolacate, right? Lolacate is an infinitive construct from the PL. And how do you know? Well, there's doubling in the second root. Remember, PLs have a doubling in the second. Nifals have a doubling in the first, okay? So this is a PL infinitive construct, okay, from Lamed Kov Tet. You can tell it's an infinitive because it has an inseparable preposition, okay? There is a second less frequently used infinitive called the infinitive absolute. But what's great about infinitive absolutes is that they usually appear kind of double because their function seems to be kind of put an emphasis on the verb. Okay, double meaning shol, right, is from probably shin lamed. Lamed, maybe, okay. And the same verb is used in the second verb as well. Okay, and there's a reason why I freeze here because it's unclear exactly where this is from. Okay, shin lamed lamed. So let me translate first. And also you shall pluck out or plunder. Okay, you shall surely pluck out or pull out or plunder for her. Lach mean from, right? Oh crap. Okay, from the sheaves. Okay, so these bundles. Okay, so you know, not only does she have like free reign to go like raid all the veggie patches, right? You're gonna like help her out by pulling things out for her. Okay, from among the bundles. Okay, this word also is a bit tricky. It's again another hapax. It doesn't occur more than, I don't know, a handful of times, probably more than once here in Ruth. Okay, so again, it's hard to know exactly where this is from. It's probably from Sava, right? With a hey. Okay, okay, but I don't know. Okay, so you should even pull out this from her. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to shol tashul. Okay, one way of understanding tashulu, right, in particular, right, is that it is from shin lamed lamed. Okay, and it's interesting, right? The meaning of shin lamed lamed, it's what we call a geminate verb, right? The Gemini twins, the second and third root is the same. Okay, they're twins. Okay. And if you look up shin lamed lamed, it means to plunder, to draw out, almost to rob. So another reading of this is that Boaz is telling, plundering himself to help Ruth out, right? Or to robbing himself to help Ruth out, which is fun, right? Okay. The problem with geminates is that we don't really know. Geminates are wacky. And sometimes they don't behave like they're truly geminates. A lot of times geminates are confused with and behave like third hays, as you see here, right? Where the hay has dropped out. Okay, so we don't really know at the end what the original root was. Okay, so then you have to also look up shin lamed hay, which this could also be from, to be honest, right? I mean, you know, if you ignore the doggish, okay, whatever. Shin lamed hay also means to pull out, right? Shin lamed lamed meant to plunder, to rob, or to draw out, okay, in order to plunder them is actually what it means. Okay, shin lamed hay has something kind of similar-ish meaning to pull out as well, but it can also mean to be quiet, at ease, or even to seduce. Okay, so the variety of meanings tell me a little bit that this word is very confused. Okay, now how much of the secondary meanings, right, to be at quiet or to be at ease or to pull out, you know, kind of entice out, you know. So, and I think seduce, that language is from that idea of enticing out, right? So as to plunder, you know, how much of that is implied here? I mean, it's hard to know, right? But it, you know, and who is doing what, you know, is Boaz enticing Ruth, right, to be more at ease, to realize she's in a kind of safe place where she can glean, not even glean, you know, they're going to pull out food for her, right? Is that what's going on? Or is it about, you know, again, Boaz as a conduit of God, you know, really the message here is that God is, you know, creating this kind of safe haven for this place to be at ease, place to be quiet in some ways, you know, for Ruth. Okay, is it that you know, and especially later in the, you know, when we get to that kind of whatever threshing floor scene, okay, you know, who is seducing whom is an interesting question. Okay, anyway, so so he says, you know, and also, you know, you shall pluck out or pull out for her from the bundles. Like I said, this is a little, you know, hard to know what that's from, right? But okay. Perhaps, like I said, it may be from sade bait hay. Sometimes the hay will turn into a top, and sade bait hay. Sava means maybe to kind of swell. Okay, sava. Remember I told you about the grain, right? So, in which case you'll have kind of a repetition if sabat really should have been sabah. The repetition of the sounds is very interesting, right? And sabah, sade bait hey means to swell or to pile up. Okay, in which case you have a kind of, again, a reverberation of piling up of what food and generosity and things like that, right? So maybe that's why this word is used here. It may also be an agricultural term that we've just lost, but okay. And also you shall surely pluck out for her from even among the bundles. That seems to be grain that has already been plucked out and maybe tied together. So like basically harvest stuff for her. Okay, and right, going on onward, va azavtem valikta velo tigaruba. Okay, and you shall leave them. Azav means to abandon. Okay, but of course in this case he's saying, pluck this food up for her and leave it for her. Okay, abandon them for her. Okay, basically, right? And so that, right, she can glean, so that she can, this is like cosplaying gleaning now, right? It's not really gleaning if like there are people that are harvesting it for you and like plucking out and leaving it on the floor for you to pick up, right? But okay, so again, there's a question as to whether he's saying this publicly where Ruth is within hearing, or this is like privately, oh, help this lady out, I like her, pluck stuff out for her and leave it there so she feels like she's gleaning. I don't know. Okay. And now the final thing, again, a repetition of the verse before, right? Or verse 15, below and do not, right? And again, this breaks the kind of construct chain, right? And so there's an emphasis. And by the way, be sure not to, right? Take a rule ba, right? So ga'ar, this is from ga'ar, gimel, ayin, reish, and it means to, it almost sounds like the word, the meaning of the word, ga'ar, to growl at, it has that sound. And don't, reproach her, don't berate her, don't kind of reprimand her or rebuke her. Okay, leave her alone, right? Do this, if she does this, okay. Which is, and so there's a couple of warnings that you leave her alone, even if she's doing, even if she wanders into the veggie patches, and of course this fits with what he promised Ruth, although probably not to this extent earlier, where he tells her to, only glean in my field, because I'm going to protect you, right? I'm going to make sure that you are not harassed. Okay. Okay, so this is the place to be, right? And this explains, right, these two instructions by Boaz, okay, about how the servants should really help her glean. It explains why, in some ways, what happens in verse 17, why she was, in essence, able to glean so freaking much, right? V'talakate basadeh ad ha-orev, okay, or arev. Okay, so she gleaned, okay, talakate basadeh ad arev, right? So she gleaned in the field until evening. Okay, now if you take Hebrew, the reason why I pause here is there's a pause here. Remember that the word for evening is erev. Okay, however, because the scribes have added this little marker, this little hat to tell you to pause there, it changes the spelling of erev to arev. Okay, forever. Okay, so she gleaned until the evening. Okay, and taf boat et asher likheta. Okay, and she beat out. Okay, and habat. And again, an interesting question which I don't really know the answer to is why you have this, habat, sabat, sabah. There's lots of these same sounds all over here, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because sabah means to kind of heap up. Okay, but I don't know, this wordplay here. I don't know what's going on here. Okay, habat means to, and again, I think all the Hebrew word sounds like it's meaning now. Okay, habat means to beat out. Okay, and it's used in other places in the Hebrew Bible, to talk about like punishments and how God will punish Israel. Okay, so it means to beat out. Okay, because of course you have to separate the edible parts from the non-edible parts. Okay, and so she gleaned until evening, and then she beat out. Okay, and this long uh prefix, right? The tells you, and what binyan has a long prefix, it's the hifil. Okay, so okay, this is a hifil. No, I'm gonna look that up. This is a hifil because it should say tahbit. Okay, but whatever. Okay, if this is a hifil, and all the words are all the trilateral root, right? Het, bait, tet is here. And like I said, it means to beat out. Okay, so she beat out that which, she had gleaned. Okay, like I said, you need to separate out, okay, what the food, the parts you can eat, and the vayahi ka efa so'orim. And it was it was about an ephah of so'orim. And now when you look up how much an ephah is, you will get a lot of different calculations. Some have said this is like many like weeks or at least a week of food, but many weeks worth of food. Okay, so she has gathered more than way more than what is expected. And of course, the amount that she has, gathered, right, is a reference back to this repeated, tisba vatotar, right? She was sated and there was leftovers, right? So, which again is repeated later, so it's a kind of demonstration of that. Right. So, and of course, embedded within the demonstration. So notice how, here, that she was sated and she had leftovers, right? And it ends here with she was, had so much, she had basically leftovers, right? I mean, and how Boaz and what he does, right, to make sure that she gets this egregious, unbelievable amount of food, how that's kind of bookended by these terms, right? And it, of course, it explains how she was able to do this miraculous thing. Okay, and like I said, a lot of that seems to be as a way of emphasizing, again, a demonstration of what Hesed means, or the gratuitousness of God, okay, especially God's Hesed. Okay, now I asked you a question at the very bottom, right, about this kind of phrase in yellow, as to, why Boaz does this. Okay, why does Boaz go out of his way to help Ruth out? And like I said, one reason is because, right, he is really the conduit through which God manifests his generosity to these two widows. Okay, now you can kind of think of other reasons, right? You can say the most obvious one is that he's interested in her, right? Considering that this ends with them having, getting married and having a child. That would also make a lot of sense. You don't have to go in that direction. You can say, it's as Ruth says, for whatever reason, she has found favor, right, in the eyes of someone that is more powerful than her. She's lucky, right? I mean, lucky or blessed, okay? And that's why he goes out of his way to help her out, okay? It could also be, and so much of this text is about kinship and family, and those things that bind together, right? A community and things like that. Another interpretation is that Boaz is going out of his way to make sure she has enough food, right? That she is successful in her gleaning, because he realizes, as we found out at the earlier part of chapter 2, that Ruth is gleaning for two, and that Naomi is indeed part of his family, right? I mean, kind of this larger kinship relationship. Okay. So it could be that what's insinuated here is that Boaz favors Ruth because he realizes that Ruth is connected to Naomi, who is part of his kin, right? And in so doing, realizing Ruth's connections to Naomi, he is treating her like kin. Okay, so he's kind of, the means by which and, by his actions, pulls the family kind of back together. Okay. Another reason is perhaps, and again, you can go onwards, right? He realizes that the harvest is in the midst of coming to an end, right? And so that this is really it for food. Okay. And so another way to read this is that he's not interested in marrying Ruth. He likes her, he understands who she is, right? But he's trying to provide her enough food so that her and Naomi can survive the winter. So, that he really had no intentions of marrying her. Right, he just wants to provide enough so they don't starve during this kind of low period that's coming. Okay, so there's lots of things you can draw there as to why he's doing that. Okay, now do I want to go on to the next verse? I will stop here and I will talk about the other following verses in the next video.